A little background on me. So I'm a teacher of kinesiology at University of North Dakota. Before I was teaching, I just took this teaching job in August of 2024, right? It's 2025. Yeah, so less than a year. I was a strength and conditioning coach at University of North Dakota for 7 years prior. Been up in North Dakota for a really long time now. I'm 32 years old, so I've been up there basically since I was 18. I had a really short-lived on and off NFL, CFL career in 2016, 2017, and then I basically just lucked into a job as a strength coach at my alma mater because my strength coach, who became my boss, had an open position. He knew I was like CSCS certified, I was in kinesiology, all that kind of stuff. So I just lucked into right timing of getting a job there as a strength coach. Did that for seven to 8 years, I think. And then now I'm teaching, and I basically just teach like CSCS prep. So my role in the academic community is to get our kinesiology department accredited with the NFCA for the Cascade accreditation. Are you guys familiar with that? Some of you guys probably are. What's that?
2030, I think, is
when it's all due. Yeah. So we're trying to apply in 2027. So I still have a couple of years to kind of develop the whole curriculum and everything. So just like what Shelby said, hopefully I can provide some things for you guys that you can actually apply. I didn't realize is everyone here in strength and conditioning?
No.
Oh, not everyone is. Okay, well that's good, because I know in 2 weeks I'm doing another speaking engagement, and I'm talking to sport coaches. So yeah, I guess I didn't really understand like what the entire audience here was going to be. So a lot of stuff I'm talking about, you guys probably already know, but maybe I'll provide you guys something a little bit different that offers another perspective. So hopefully, and then my wife told me that this slide is kind of fruity, which I just went into PowerPoint and I used a blank slate, and then I used that AI like design thing on the right hand side, and this is what it gave me. So. But this is the title slide. It's considerations and strategies for high school athletes. Wait, show of hands. Who here is working with high school? Okay, most of you guys are. You guys lying? All right, you can go to the next slide here. All right, so goals for a high school strength and conditioning program: just general physical preparation, reduce the risk of non-contact injuries. I know like there's a debate on reducing risk of injury versus injury prevention. I use those things interchangeably. I think it's kind of a, petty debate between can you reduce or can you prevent. Like fire departments don't prevent fires, but you say they're like fire prevention. Build competency with basic loadable movement patterns. I say support sports performance, but don't specialize, so I make a distinction there. And then address all physical qualities that contribute to both the health and the performance of the student athletes. You guys would probably would agree with all of those points, I'm assuming. Does anyone have anything they can add to this? And feel free to just shout out. I'm a very informal speaker, and I have a stutter, so if I stutter, don't mind that. Anything that you guys would add to that? Yeah.
Direct correlation with building confidence in the gym.
For sure.
Goes outside.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Anyone else?
Our goal is to build confidence.
Yeah.
We want tough athletes.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we can go to the next one. All right, some considerations here. So injuries. So I have I don't know if this is like a unpopular take or not, but so I do some consulting for local high schools in North Dakota. So I should have said I'm from Grand Forks, North Dakota, which is 40 miles from the Canadian border. So I'm like way far up north. So we have a lot of like really small country schools. What's the rural schools? Rural. That's the word I'm looking for. And there's like a big craze within the schools that I consult with about someone tears an ACL or someone gets some sort of injury, and the whole coaching staff kind of has like this panic attack about it, and they think that injuries are on the rise. If you look into the research, I'm just talking about high school football. Injuries are down actually in the last decade with high school football, especially non-contact injuries when you equate like participation hours and exposure. So I always try to tell people like, yeah, there may be more total injuries, but when we equate for participation hours and exposure to the stress, it's down. And I think that's a really good sign because it means more schools are developing like real strength conditioning programs More schools are addressing physical qualities, outputs, all that kind of stuff, health of the tissues, all that kind of stuff. So, but anyways, contributing factors to injuries with high school kids. We know what peak height velocity is. Have you guys heard of this? It just occurs during puberty. It's like the time period in a kid's life when they're growing the fastest. So a couple things to consider is that their center of mass is changing. So that can affect like motor control, it can affect balance, it can affect like the tightness of the muscle tendon units, can affect a lot of different things with like their biomechanics, their physiology. So I'd say that's like, I don't know if this is actually the number one injury risk, I just put number one, but it's a contributing factor for injuries. Like I said, it occurs during puberty. I touched on alterations of center of mass, tightening muscle tendon units. The other thing to consider here is like not all bones, not all tissues grow at the same rate as all the others. So just a thing to consider that like there's nothing you can really do about it. The only thing we can really do is make sure we're loading appropriately, training hard, training smart, which is everything you guys that we're all trying to do anyways. And then lack of mental maturity. So this isn't to say that they're like immature in a poor behavior kind of way, but sports place a lot of cognitive stress, cognitive load on the athletes, which we all know, and they just can't like process and compartmentalize all of the different stress in the same way that adults can. So like kind of Shelby was talking about a little bit how being in the weight room can be stressful for those girls she was talking about because there's so many other factors that are going on in their lives and they can't necessarily just concentrate on what they're doing right now. I think it's a really big, I'm not going to call it an issue, but it's a factor for high school kids, and it's just something that I think as coaches we really should be aware of. Peak height velocity, lack of mental maturity, so things that we can't really do much about except just do what we can do in the weight room, train them hard, train them good, load appropriately, have good volume, good intensity, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's how we would address it. Reinforce good quality movement patterns, manage intensity, volume as necessary. Most important thing we can do as coaches is to prepare the neuromuscular and skeletal system to handle the forces and the stress associated with high intensity physical activity, which would come from all the sports that they play, any other extracurriculars that they're doing, and what we're doing in the weight room. So, questions or comments on this slide at all? Anything anyone wants to add? All right, cool. All right, so for me, we're all familiar with Mark Ratelle, right? I'm a big Mark Ratelle fan. So I just use the same criteria for exercise selection. Using exercises that train a large amount of muscle mass simultaneously, train through full effective range of motion, exercises that are conducive to long-term progressive overloading. This is typically going to be a lot of like just bilateral barbell work. Obviously you can use dumbbells, but multi-joint compound movements is going to be squat, hinge, upper body pull, upper body push. Kind of the same stuff I'm sure a lot of you guys are doing and prioritizing exercise selection-wise with your teams. I guess I don't really have much more to elaborate with this slide, but that's kind of the process that I would go through when I'm programming for like my high school clients. The other thing I should have said is I don't work with high school teams. Like I program for them, but I'm not ever like in the weight room with them. But I do train high school kids in my garage, so 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of thing. But I have the experience in the weight room with college athletes, so just a little more context for you guys so you can kind of take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. You can go to the next slide. All right, one thing with exercises and exercise selection I think is really important is scaling exercises. When you're selecting exercises, you want to make sure that the exercises you're choosing can easily be scaled. I'm sure you guys have like groups of 3 to 4 at a rack, maybe more. Do you guys have more than that at a rack sometimes? So it's probably really important to be able to scale whatever exercise you're choosing for that group of, you might have, how do you guys group your athletes? Do you go based on like strength levels? Do you go based on size? You don't mean you could have like a 6'2" kid with a 5'8" kid or something. Yeah, anyways, choosing exercises that are easily scalable. Every pattern can be regressed and progressed. Scale up for proficiency, strength and challenge, scale down for safety, control, and teaching. This really just allows the entire group to train the same motor pattern at different levels. A couple examples here, so tempo range as opposed to just like a rigid tempo. That way they have a right, like if you're gonna do an eccentric focus exercise, let's just call it a back squat. You give them like 3 to 6 seconds on the way down, and a 2 to 4 second pause, something like that. That way you don't necessarily have to do so much like changing weights. So if you have 2 to 3 kids who are slightly different strength levels, you can just keep the same weight on the bar. The stronger kid can do like a 6 second eccentric. The weaker kid can go 3 seconds. That's just an example for you to make sure that scaling is easy and it keeps the flow of the room pretty fluid. Obviously, unilateral option to scale up an upper body exercise. One really good example of this would be like inverted rows, body weight rows. I'm sure you guys do TRX, or like you set the height of the bar at about belly button height or something. And I'm sure some kids can bang out 25 reps or something, but some kids, maybe like the heavier offensive lineman type kids, can only do, or maybe some like weaker girls can only do 5 to 6 reps. Give the stronger kids a unilateral option to do one arm, and now they're doing 6 reps, and everyone else who's not as strong is doing 6 reps with bilateral. So one thing I always think is important to consider is how are you going to scale the exercise, and then kind of build it into the program if you can. So that way, when a group of kids or a group of athletes are at the same rack, they know where they can scale up and down, and just give them options, right? Go to the next slide here. Some program structuring stuff. Obviously, all of this depends on competition schedule, practice schedule, other factors, travel schedule. I think a really like good default starting point is just 3 full body sessions per week. That way, the frequency, strength training wise, for all the primary muscle groups is going to be 3 times per week. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays are really easy kind of default, but obviously depends on competition, practice, travel schedule, all that kind of stuff. And then structuring a session, I just like to hit 1 main lower body exercise, then 1 main upper body exercise, followed by 1 to 2 pairs. I know this is like a really big range here. 1 to 2 pairs or 1 to 2 trisets following that upper and lower body exercise. Just gives them a really simple daily structure that they know what they're going to be doing every single time. After you put them through this kind of routine for a few weeks, maybe even less, maybe a few days, they can come in, they know exactly what's expected of them. Do you guys use PDFs to like hand out? Do you guys use Team Builder? What do you guys do? Just curious. Use what?
We use Weight Room Coach.
Is that an app?
Yeah.
You have like an iPad?
Yeah, well, no, you can do it on iPad, but I'll write the program, and then it'll populate the sheet for each guy or girl, and the percentages will populate as a number.
Okay.
So they'll get a sheet every
Yeah.
Monday,
Yeah.
and they throw it every weekend.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, anyways, this just kind of sets a flow routine that the student athletes can follow. They know exactly what's expected of them. You can kind of get them in a routine, knowing how long that they're going to rest in between sets, all that kind of stuff. Now, warm-ups. My thing is with a warm-up, I'm not necessarily opposed to like doing dynamic stretching, like a knee hug lunge. I can't even think of other things. What's another like dynamic stretch? Knee hug lunge, like a scoop, stuff like that. But if we're trying to maximize efficiency in the weight room, if you only have like 35 minutes, 40 minutes, I think I would just skip that kind of stuff if possible. According to research, looking at like a ton of different warm-up protocols, the consistency that's found in order to like hit a certain baseline of athletic performance, all you really have to do is just increase core body temperature, increase heart rate to 60% of heart rate max or higher, and stimulate the sympathetic nervous system. These first 2 things are really easy to do. Increase core body temperature, all you have to do for that is move. Moving any sort of movement pattern you want. Increase heart rates to 60% of heart rate max. That's like, I don't know, 110 beats per minute probably for these kids. Really move a little bit faster, and then stimulate sympathetic nervous system. A few different ways to do that is just incorporate maybe some sort of mini competition and increase the intensity of whatever kind of warm-up activity you're doing. You just do like extensive plyos. You can do tuck jumps. I mean, 3 sets of like 15 tuck jumps for high school kids with like 20 to 30 seconds of rest in between them. That's gonna warm them up pretty good. You're gradually increasing. You scale it up and down based on how high you're jumping, how high you're driving the knees, whether it's a shorter or longer ground contact time. So that's one thing that's scalable. It takes like, I don't know, 2.5 minutes. And then if you feel like the group still isn't warmed up enough after that, you can incorporate maybe some sort of competition like like lateral line hops for 20 seconds. You can get more hops in, ground touches in 20 seconds. Gives them something to just kind of amp them up a little bit. Takes 3 to 4 minutes. Everyone should be pretty warm after that, and then you can just go into whatever exercise you're doing. And then if you're starting the day with some more plyos and jumps, they've already got some of that like specific type of motive activity in, and then they're good to go for whatever's next. You guys do something similar warm-up wise? Yeah? Anybody do something different? No? Cool. Then we're all on the same page. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. Frequency. So just ask yourself what physical qualities matter. Like I said earlier, support sports performance, not specialized. There's plenty of other physical qualities that matter, but strength, speed, power, mobility, aerobic conditioning, anaerobic conditioning are probably the big rocks that everyone in here is focused on. Just think about which of these qualities are most important. Might be the same for everyone, might be different from team to team, might be different from athlete to athlete within the same team. But anyways, the frequency or the split of your training should reflect what you're prioritizing here regarding the physical qualities that you want to train. For me, a very basic general starting point is sprinting twice per week if possible. Get some acceleration work, some max velocity work. Strength training 2 to 3 times per week if possible. That's per major muscle group or movement pattern. Conditioning 2 to 3 times per week if you can. Mobility, just ask yourself what joints, likely depends on the athlete and the team needs. Potentially with mobility, this is all that's needed is just the basic strength training that you're doing anyways. Probably not for everybody, but for some people that is all you need. If it's not a limiting factor, it's not a limiting factor, and you might not want to like address it specifically. You might just say, hey, when you're at home, we're not going to spend time in the weight room doing this mobility drill. This is something you can do when you're at home watching TV and you got nothing going on. May as well get some mobility working then, because it's not something you necessarily need to like focus on and coach, right? Because you got other things you're prioritizing in the weight room that you can spend more time on. But if you are going to program some mobility, really easy time to do it is just in between sets of compound exercises as needed, because they're going to be resting whatever you prescribe rest-wise, 2 to 3 minutes. I don't know what you guys prescribe. If you prescribe 2.5 minutes of rest, or they're on the clock and you're saying set 1, set 2, set 3, it's a really easy time for them to just get some extra mobility work in them. Really easy way to just to put it in there. And I think power, with most high school kids, is just easily developed via strength training, like high quality strength training and speed training and plyos and jump training. I don't think you have to like do any sort of like specific power work to develop power. Once you reach like a certain level, then you might want to start throwing that in. And then, yeah, like I said, once an athlete or a team is ready for it, 1 to 3 times per week is a pretty good starting point. So this is like my general framework for training frequency for all of these different qualities. Anybody have thoughts on that? Questions, disagreements maybe? I welcome that. No? Cool. All right, sets and reps. With high school kids, I generally like the higher set and rep schemes. Basic idea here is just high frequent exposure to the necessary muscular efforts to move a load and develop habits and motor patterns. Obviously, like the kids I work with, we'll still train in like the 3 to 5, maybe even like the 1 to 2 rep range on occasion. But generally, I think the higher reps is going to be more conducive to their long-term development, just because like the magnitude of stress for high school kids doesn't have to be that high. They have a low training age. They're going to get stronger lifting like lighter weights and just learning to coordinate movement patterns. Like I said, feeling out the necessary muscular effort to move the load. It's going to be enough for them to develop neuromuscular strength. It's going to be enough for them to develop some like tissue adaptations. So I generally like higher rep schemes. And then using slower tempos and introducing pauses, you can lower the rep ranges because you're still going to get that time under tension. You're still going to have them feel that muscular effort if you're doing slower eccentrics. You're still kind of teaching them they're developing the movement patterns, understanding the positioning, understanding where their center of mass should be in relation to the load, in relation to their base of support where the feet are. So yeah, we good with this? That all makes sense? Awesome. All right, some programming strategies that I really like is for high school kids, a double progression. Really, I like double progression for anybody, whether you're We all know what a double progression is. Anyone who doesn't ever heard of this? All right. Everyone says they. We'll go over it anyways. Just setting a rep range, for example, 6 to 10 reps for a given exercise, and then in order for having them do that same weight for consecutive sets, and if an athlete can hit like the top end of that rep range, so 10 reps for several consecutive sets, then they're given the green light. They can go up in weight. So it's a way for them to like demonstrate that they have enough strength to add weight confidently. So it's a really good way to kind of pull the reins back on kids, because if I'm not opposed to just like linear progression and using sets of 8 and increasing weight week to week or whatever, but it's a really good way to just pull the reins back on them, and then they have to demonstrate, hey, I'm strong enough to go up in weight. And then if they go up in weight, and now they're back down to doing sets of 6, well, now they can keep that same weight so they can do sets of 10 for several consecutive sets. Really good way to just progress them, kind of show them where they're at, really. This keeps the effort high, technique intact, and load progressing without rushing it. It also makes it easy to coach and track in large group settings. Not chasing random PRs, just building a base of consistent, repeatable performance and habits over time. Did I explain that well, the double progression? Did anyone like more confused after I talked about it? Okay. Another programming strategy I like is just establishing minimum velocity thresholds. Do you guys have access to like VBT units? Awesome. Does anyone not? If you don't, it's not going to be very applicable to you. But I like using this it's very similar to the double progression. You give them a set, and they have to achieve all of the reps in the set at a minimum velocity threshold. Randomly, I just put 0.55 meters per second up there. And if they can achieve all of those reps at that speed or higher, then they can increase load as necessary. Again, this just ensures quality effort. It also avoids excessive fatigue. I think that 0.5 or 0.55 meters per second is definitely heavy enough for high school kids, because like I said before, think about a squat. A 0.4 meters per second is typically associated with like 2 to 3 reps in reserve. 0.55 is more associated with like 5 reps in reserve. That's heavy enough for a high school kid to develop strength adaptations from it, right? So the other thing it does, builds awareness for the athlete. So if they know their target is 0.6 meters per second and they're moving it, they're getting that objective feedback and moving it at 0.7, they know they have more in the tank, they know they can do more. High school athletes can adapt to higher average velocities. They're not chasing slow bar speeds just for the sake of increasing the intensity. Just like anecdotal experience here, I think that 0.55 meters per second for high school kids is very appropriate. And then once they're, I don't think even like a high school senior who has like a 2 to 3 year training age, I still don't think they really need to go much heavier or slower than that. On occasion, it's definitely appropriate, but staying within that same minimum velocity threshold is pretty good for most kids. Soft AMRAP sets. I'm sure you guys all know what an AMRAP set is, just as many reps as possible. I call it a soft AMRAP set because I don't want them to actually go until failure. I want them to go to like 1 rep in reserve. And this obviously you need like eyeballs, you need coaches watching the kids doing the set, because some high school kids can be kind of immature and push themselves to the point of they get stapled under the bar. I'm sure we've all seen that before, and then you're just like, dude, what are you doing? But anyways, I think this allows for an opportunity for a student athlete to just demonstrate more than what he or she thinks he or she is capable of. Let's just say you're using 65%. They might look at that, whatever that is, 125 pounds for a kid, and they're like, I bet I can do like 10 reps. And then they achieve 16 or something because they have a group of teammates surrounding them, cheering them on. They do like way more than they think they're capable of. I think it's really good in that sense. High school athletes can use a wide range of percentages. I think 65 to 80% is very appropriate from my experience when you're doing something like this. You're just going to do 1 warm-up sets, work up to that 1 soft AMRAP set. And I think high school athletes can likely complete 10 to 20 reps in this intensity range, and that's something that you can just progress for a really long time on. You can do this probably for 6 to 8 weeks and still progress, either using the same weight and getting more reps, or you can say, hey, if you get 20 plus reps, we're going to add 10 to 15 pounds. If you get 20 plus reps again, we're gonna add 10 to 15 pounds again, or you can have some sort of tier system where if you get 20, we're gonna add 10, if you get 15, we're gonna add 5, if you get 10, we're gonna keep the weight the same. You gotta get at least 10, something like that. You guys can apply it however you want. With the soft AMRAP sets, the first half of the set, if you're doing this many reps, it's just really just like high quality practice reps, and then the second half of the set can be really stimulated for them. It can support some of the conditioning. You're gonna get a really strong like metabolic response from something like this. It can kind of support some of the conditioning if conditioning isn't a priority for you at that time of your training, which could be for a variety of reasons. You don't need to get into all of that. And I think there's something you can probably do for high school kids 1 to 2 times per week. You could do like a squat soft AMRAP set on one day, and then you choose like your bench press soft AMRAP set on another day, Monday or Thursday, something like that. Really easy to just implement, really easy to progress, really easy to get high school kids to like cheer each other on and just demonstrate to themselves that they can do more than what they previously thought. Yeah, I think I have only one more slide.
So are you building that in with those other sets, so like your double progression?
No, this would be on a different.
That'd be a
this would be a different day. But you could do like, depending on how your split is, you could do a double progression for a certain exercise on one day, and then the soft AMRAP set for the same exercise on another day. So yeah, you could implement all of them together. And then the giant set. So you guys know what a giant set is? I think some people call it giant sets. I call this a giant set. It's where you give them like 15 to 20. You just give them a rep total. I know people probably call it cluster sets too. Some people call giant sets like a group of 4 exercises. I don't call that a giant. I just call that like a triple pair or tricep or something like that. So a giant set to me is just prescribing a total number of reps to achieve, and it's broken up into however many sets you need to achieve that rep count. I really like these. Usually for if you're working with like a big group, I put this in at like the end of a session on only certain exercises like pull-ups, because obviously pull-ups are another exercise where like some kids can bang out 15 good pull-ups and some kids can only do like 1 or 2. It's another exercise. Nordic hamstring curls would be another example. Like some kids can probably do 15 Nordic hamstring curls and feel fine the next day. Some kids can probably only do 5. So you give them just like a rep count, and then they just take whatever time they need to break it up into however many sets they need to complete that rep count. So I think, yeah, it works well for like final 1 or 2 exercises of the session. Not something I would do for like your main movement, like back squats, because then you got, I don't know, there's a lot of congestion in the rack trying to get in and out. It builds in a load cap. So I'm trying to think of an exercise. So like a barbell row. You guys have kids do barbell rows. It's something that a group of kids can do using the same load, and you're capping the load because they have to, based on like the rules you give them around or the constraints around the exercise. If they have to get 25 reps, you're probably not going to overload it, because then they're not going to complete the given rep total. I feel like I'm going all over the place right now. I think these work really well in congested space. Student athletes aren't doing a set and then handing dumbbells back and forth to each other, or having to change the weight on the bars as much. Again, it offers another opportunity for a student athlete to demonstrate more than what he or she thinks he or she is capable of. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of ways to add rules. So you say, hey, you got to get 20 reps of whatever exercise you're doing. You got to get it done in 5 minutes. So it's a really good way to, like, if you're getting short on time, and you look at the clock and you're like, shit, we got to be out of here in 7 minutes. Hey, you got 5 minutes to get all these 20 reps in, get it done, and then that kind of builds in a load cap too. Other rules you can do, you must get at least 5 reps per set. That's a way to add a load cap, or must take 30 seconds or less between reps. There's plenty of other kind of rules or constraints you can add into giant sets to make them flow efficiently, move efficiently, all that kind of stuff. And I feel like I didn't talk about this in a very articulate manner. Does this make sense? Giant sets? Okay, cool. That's my last slide, isn't it?
Yep.
Awesome. Anybody got questions for me? Comments, concerns on anything? Yeah.
As far as the peak height velocity, speaking from experience as well, not being able to lift the bar at 5'3" freshman year and getting into the gym, what do you think is appropriate to, I guess, definitively introduce like barbell / higher level movements?
Are you asking like an age?
Yeah.
An age? Oh, That's above my pay grade, man. I don't think there is like an age that you have to wait till. As long as
technical ability.
yeah, if they're moving proficiently and they're being supervised, because at least they're building like quality habits and motor patterns. Just like don't be dumb and introduce too much weight.
Well, you obviously don't go as far as in depth to be like your center of mass is
Right.
changing, so you need to adjust based on that.
Right. Yeah. You got something?
Dynamic stretching, and I have kids that are sitting all day and then going with that. Do you see any issues with not doing dynamic stretching before that? Because
I haven't. In my experience, I haven't.
I'm my concern since I'm sitting 7 hours a day, and then all of a sudden I got them doing tuck shows. So I'm thinking my lineman, that's going to be a full hammy out of nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, the high school kids I'm working with, they're never like coming through class, so maybe my perspective would change. I know when I was working with men's basketball at UD, those guys loved stretching, and they would always ask me to stretch before lifting. I was just saying, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Yeah, maybe my perspective would change if I was working with kids at 3:30 coming from class after 8 hours of sitting.
So with the 0.50 for meters per second time velocity, are you giving them like a range, or do you find that's pretty good for like all exercises, or does it vary based on exercise and like size and athlete?
It could vary between exercises, but
as far as strength stimulus.
yeah, when it comes to like squat and bench, that's tipped at 0.50, 0.55. It's a little bit of like a throwing shit at the wall and hoping it works, right? Yeah, there could be a little bit of variance between exercise and exercise, but like squat and bench, that's typically the load I'll say, or the velocity I'll say.
Kind of speaking on that, Will and I in our new program that we're coming up with have come up with velocity for upper limb exercises and lower limb exercises, because there is a difference. Like
we have that kind of
formatted
in there,
So we'll share that with you guys. But it's pretty cool. It breaks down. Because obviously you're able to move a deadlift faster at a heavier than a bench press, for example. So it does break out.
Lower limbs just have the capacity to move faster.
Are you changing that like if like a taller athlete versus like a shorter athlete?
Well, the taller athlete typically is going to reach higher velocities because they have greater distance to move. But I feel like that would be really hard to program in a team setting where you're like, hey, you're 6'3", you're 5'11". Let's try. I don't know if you have the resources and like the manpower to figure that out.
But generally, you just say like around that 5'0".
Yeah. Anything else?
I have a question. So I know you're a big fan of Olympic weightlifting. In the high school setting, like how do you go about that? Do you not do the snatch? Do you do more like clean pulls or?
Yeah, I'm kind of hesitant to talk about that because I've never worked with like a like in the team setting with a high school. I just work with high school like small groups and personal training. So I implement it for them. I don't know what it would be like trying to teach a group of 40 high school kids Olympic lifts. So I don't know. It's gotta be hard. I would totally be a proponent of it if it's like logistically possible, but if you're like, we're not gonna, I can't spend this time doing this, I would fault anyone for that. Yeah. In a college setting, I think it's pretty easy. Cool. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, I got a question.
Yeah.
So, elaborate on what you just said. So, if you could take the limiting factor out, like you said, it's easy to do in a college setting. If in a high school setting, it's difficult to do. But if, let's just say, in theory, would you then do the Olympic lifting at the high school level if there wasn't obstacles?
Oh yeah.
Logistical otherwise.
I personally would. Yeah. I think they offer a lot more than
So
kind
the
of giving
reason
credit
not
for.
to is not a physiological
Right.
issue, it's an environmental issue.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I would just say it's based on circumstance. Just don't really have the circumstances, the resources to appropriately and effectively implement them.
So if you believe that the Olympic lifts are the better protocol for physiological, but you have limiting factors that doesn't allow you to do that, what would be the next best things to take place with the Olympics?
I wouldn't even try to replace them. Like I said in one of the slides, I think you're going to get like a lot of the power development for high school kids, just doing high frequency sprinting and then high frequency, like good, solid quality quality strength training. I wouldn't even try to replace them. Yeah.
You said you worked with North Dakota's basketball team, right? Did you have them do Olympic lifts?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have to make
I only
accommodations?
snatched them.
Nah, okay.
Yeah.
Even with that, did you have to make accommodations for height differences, or were they able to snatch off the floor?
Blocks.
Blocks. Okay.
Blocks. Yep. And yeah, I like in hindsight, I wish I would have had them snatch from before, but I don't know. I think I was too immature to like put my foot down. And just, you know what I mean. There was a little bit of conceit on my part and just trying to please them, please the head coach. But looking back, I probably should have. I would have had them snatch from before. Yeah. They're really good from the hang. Really easy from the hang, especially hang from above the knee.
Well, that's what I found from high school studying. Hang clean isn't so much an issue, but me getting clean off the floor or that's where I get mobility issues and all that going on. When it's one knee and 100 kids,
Right.
That's where it gets difficult.
Yeah, once
That's
they're
why I
starting to
suck
cross
at
the knee with the bar and they don't know like when the double knee bend should occur, when the shoulders should start getting behind the bar, you get all these like weird look, like you're gonna see reps that you don't even know how to correct when you're working this like it's so sloppy. Never sloppy. Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions on good competitions for your weightlifting or weight training?
Like you're talking about like in the warm ups?
Yeah.
I would just implement competitions via jumping, setting up hurdles, and then consistently within like a group. So you have, I'm just making up numbers here. If you have a group of 30 kids, split them up into 6 groups of 5. They have to do hurdle jumps. See who can jump over the highest hurdle. That's like a really easy one. Yeah. They can just take rest as needed. Put a clock on, say, hey, we're going to be doing this as our warm up for the next 4 minutes. See how high you can get that hurdle and still jump over it. Yeah. Broad jumps too, so you can jump the furthest. So you're not going to have a tape measure out with everybody, but you can take some chalk and put a chalk line down, something like that. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.